Hello and welcome to Clear Waters. Tonight, God exists versus God must exist. Clear Waters, that sounds like the same thing. Sounds like it. Totally different things. There's a world of difference between these two statements. God exists versus God must exist. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they mean the same thing. So let's do this presentation and then we go into the chats and receive calls. Open the call lines. Welcome, Agent Wolf. Welcome to the live stream. I'm gonna check my audio and receive calls. Open the call lines. Welcome. Sounds good. Excuse me, and the Discord is up and running. Yesterday, we have a few technical problems with the Discord. If you missed yesterday's live stream, it was a bit heated. But I think we got a little bit of value. Great conversations with great people. That was really nice. I enjoyed those conversations from yesterday. So, if you allow me, I can hear myself better. So let's lower the volume and let's jump into this presentation because I don't know about you, but this conversation about invisible entities, gods, spirits, seems to me that if we clarify some things about these beliefs and these gods, maybe there's something positive, something of value for humanity. Because if you don't know me, after all these videos that I have made, all these live streams, all these conversations with believers and not believers, my view hasn't changed. I think that still today, believing in gods is problematic for humanity. So I think that by having these conversations, it is my view that we can improve this world. Let's clarify things. So let's jump into this short presentation about what could be the difference between someone claiming that God exists versus God must exist. So let's lower that volume and let's go to the first scene. This is the claim. This is what I hear people say, people that believe specifically in the God of the Bible. Oh, sorry. So God exists independent of whether you believe it or not. And how many times have I heard that? Javier, I don't care what you think. I don't care. God exists if you believe it or not. God exists independent of what you think. Oh, really? I don't think so. So I'm going to go farther than just providing my opinion. Why do I say that? So let's see how I think believers conclude that God exists. Let's analyze the information. For anybody that thinks that I'm wrong, please, this is a live stream, okay? I'm here, I'm live. You can contact me via the chat if you're a little bit, uncomfortable with having voice conversations, or you prefer, you can call me to the Discord link at the bottom of the image of the screen, also on the chats. So how do believers conclude that God exists? These are the things that I hear all the time. Number one, logic. Yep. You're not gonna change that, Javier. There's things in this universe, in these creations that just are. You cannot change them. 1 plus 1 is 2 anywhere. Has always been, is not going to change. So that's how some people are able to conclude that God is real. God exists. Number 2, prophecy. Yesterday we had a caller that was saying that prophecy for him was doing the trick. That the God must be real. God exists. Because prophecy. Who else is going to be able to give prophecy? Right. Number 3. Yes, believe it or not, people are going to mention the Bible. The book. Oh, I'm sorry. The Word of God. Yeah, they're going to mention the Bible as the reason why they know that God exists. Wow. Number 4, the laws of nature. There are things that they just work because God created them like that, and you're not going to change them. These laws do not care about your beliefs or your views. Number 5, first uncaused cause. And first time I heard that, I'm like, what? All right, first uncaused cause. Yes, all right. Number 6, man, the old personal experience. You know, I had a personal experience with my Lord and Savior. And that's how I know God exists. Number 7, miracles. You know, those things that happen all the time, but that you have never seen one actually taking place and being verified by anyone. The old, someone gets off the wheelchair or something like that. No. But miracles, that's how some people know that God exists. And number 8, among others, testimonies. My neighbor told me that he had a personal experience with the Lord, and that's how I know that God exists. Yep, that's how I know God exists. So, God exists or God must exist. Let me ask you something. Which of this that I just mentioned above can connect you to the God of the Bible without relying on information from other people? I'll wait right here, okay? Now, let's continue with the presentation. So it seems to me if we take each of those 8 points, I think if we do some digging, we're going to find out that all this information is coming from other people. No clear waters, no stinky waters. Wait a second. How about my personal experience? What does it have to do with another person? You're very smart. You got me, man. You got me. But wait a second. How do you know that you had a personal experience with the God of the Bible? Well, because he talked to me. How did he talk to you exactly? Well, there's a verse in the Bible that was for me. Oh, okay. All right. So, you're getting your references from other people. And that's how you know that you had a personal experience with the God of the Bible. I could be wrong about this, and I'm open to discussions and conversations It seems to me that all these supposedly ways believers conclude that God exists is dependent on information being provided by other people, not by God. Which of these can connect you to the God of the Bible without relying on information from other people? In my view, not a single one of them. So, a believer could say the following: God inspires certain people to deliver this message to the world through the Bible. And that's how I know that the Bible is the Word of God. My question is for you. How can we independently determine that these people were inspired by God rather than simply conclude that they were? Why is God not contacting you and me and other people today? Well, Javier, because, some people can come to the wrong conclusions. Maybe some people are going to think that is the devil that is talking to us, some other spirits. So God chose these people to communicate with them his message. Wouldn't that be the same thing? I'm thinking that those people were probably contacted by the devil, not by God. I don't think anything changes other than me having to believe that these people were chosen by God to deliver his message. And I tell you, when you mention that word believing, man, you open a whole can of worms. So, what is my observation, my view about this topic that God exists versus God must exist? I tell you right now. The claim seems to be a biased intellectualization of a conclusion based on data provided by others. Let's let that sink in a little bit before I continue. If you allow me to repeat that, because my tongue gets stuck a little bit. The claim that God exists seems to be a biased intellectualization of a conclusion based on data provided by others. God exists independently of what you think. That sounds very intellectual. Wow. But it seems to be a conclusion based on what other people are telling you. I find that problematic. For the believer, the promises and offerings attributed to God can provide comfort, hope, and meaning in your life. The believer might then interpret available data in ways that align with those feelings, reinforcing and validating the conclusion and, in turn, the emotional benefits associated with it. Finding or demonstrating God might not be necessary for the believer, because the emotional rewards associated with believing in God is already being achieved or is working toward achievement, regardless of whether God actually exists. In other words, God exists is unimportant. Is getting to those emotional rewards that you get from believing. This is problematic. Because when someone tells me, independently of what you think of your God exists, I think you're trying to intellectually obfuscate something else. I think this is not about a God. I think this is about a believer and his mind and his feelings and the action he's taking. Trying to get emotional benefits from some data. No God involved. So, does God exist? I don't know. I don't know. God must exist? I don't think so. I don't think that is the optimal goal of the believer. It's the feeling that you get from believing, not the God. So that's my tiny, humble presentation about this problematic of believing in invisible beings. Let's open the phone lines and let's look at the chats for people that want to engage in conversations and have questions or probably wants to push back on what I'm saying. I'm open to it. I could be wrong. So if you want to tell me something, if you don't mind me asking questions, yeah, by all means, call me or ask me questions through the chats. All right. Let's open those phone lines. Hersey98, welcome to the live stream. Hersey98. Hersey98 writes, faith is complete trust, confidence, or belief in something or someone, often held without needing physical proof. Sounds to me, Hersey98, that as long as you feel good, you don't need anything else. That is faith. It feels good. You have meaning in your life. I don't need the God. I'm fine with it. Mr. Charles Oliver, thinking faith is a virtue, is a gullible position to hold. Mr. Diva don't play, Diva don't play, Diva don't play. Javier, do you believe that history is or can be a valid source of true information? If so, please tell me what from history do you know that didn't come from other people or books from other people? Yeah, always making the comparison, Diva, with, let's say, George Washington, with the most powerful being in the universe, and people telling us that George Washington was a real guy and that the God of the universe, the creator of the universe, is also real and exists. I don't know if I'm going to be using the same instruments for measuring or for testing, or if my standards for evidence are going to be the same, or my interest in asking questions on both cases. No. This is totally two different conversations. Someone tells me, Javier, there was a guy, George Washington, there was a guy that used to live a long time ago. I'm like, man, I don't care. All right, sure. But if someone tells me, hey, someone wants you punished after you die, so you better pay attention. I'm like, man, what are we talking about here? Yes, tell me exactly what are we talking about here. What? Where's the God? Let's show it to me. No, Javier, I just have information from a book. Oh, man. Oh, where's my time? Out of Babylon, your shirt was not spontaneously created randomly, just you. Again, the God of the universe, I don't think is equivalent to my shirt. Diva don't play, both are historical. So the creator of the universe is historical. He's not here right now. He's not communicating with us. So we have to depend on other people in order to be able to conclude that God exists, which doesn't prove that the God exists. It just proves that you made a conclusion. All right, Cornelius. There are different base systems. 1 + 1 in binary equals 1, 0. Interesting. DMF. So no one of these prove any God. Yeah, but for some believers, it makes it for them. Yeah, the 500 witnesses, I believe. I believe them. Never was one. Born into it is mysteriously not in the list. Yeah, I mentioned that there are more, so I just made it into 8. There's many more. Some people say that a bird that was singing in their window, it's God talking to them. So there are many more. Cornelius, no one can claim anything without information from other people. Descartes tried and failed. Yes, I don't know. I have a taste. When it comes to God, I prefer to have first-hand witness myself, first-hand experience. Not go by gossip, by stories. No, it's just my taste. I want to talk to the God myself. I want to see the God. Something. Give me something other than gossip. The monk, 5823. The word of God is law, and God will say. And the Bible is the word of God. Sure, the monk. Whatever you say, Diva, don't play, Javier. Jesus Christ was a historical person who claimed and also proved he was God. Historical evidence. It seems to me that you were not there, so you have to depend on information provided to you by other people. And you have come to a conclusion that these people are telling the truth, which you could be wrong. Okay? So it is okay to believe what other people are telling you. And it's okay to come to conclusions yourself. But that explains why your conclusion is not the same conclusion as other people, because other people don't believe whatever other people are telling them through a book that was written thousands of years ago and changed, translated, edited, and etc., etc., etc. Believing in God, you don't need a God. You just need the belief. And that will make it into give meaning into your life. You just need the belief, not the God. Cornelius, as an atheist, these are bad arguments. I don't know if bad arguments in a good or bad way. You are protected. I love this channel. I love the truth. One thing I dislike is social norms or group thinking. You are protected. Thank you so much for being here. I guess you're not into group thinking. I find it that good for humanity or beneficial for humanity. And for yourself, of course. Out of Babylon, that's the point. Your shirt and your shoes did not randomly make themselves. Yet the universe somehow looks up, apps, spits us out. I have no idea what you're talking about, out of Babylon. What does that have to do with proving that God is real and exists? Phantom X, welcome to the live stream. Much of what we know about history has nothing to do with tales that humans have told each other. We have gone out and found archaeology. We have sequenced genomes and mapped out migration patterns and timelines. Diva, don't play. Javier, people today with AI and camera tricks can make you see or think something is real that actually isn't right. So lots of trustworthy eyewitnesses' testimony is very good evidence to most people. Well, Diva, I think we can apply the same thing to people thousands of years ago. Maybe they were not using AI, but they were using other tricks to fool people into thinking that a person was walking on water and resurrected 3 days later. So That's a good example. Thank you. We can apply it to the times of people when they were creating thousands of gods, just like the God of the Bible. Mr. Oh Boy, welcome to the channel. Welcome to the live stream. Did Jesus actually even exist? I still could never feel certain of historical Jesus. Just like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of people, maybe millions. Hosea live. I used to be an atheist, and I now follow other people and jump into group thinking. I'm just kidding. I'm making that up. Hosea live. I used to be an atheist, and I had a near-death experience. And when you are on your deathbed, you somehow believe that there is a God. And as I was crying out for God to save me, He answered me, and I had a face. So it sounds to me that you had a change of heart, and you decided to make sense of something in your life that wasn't making sense. And you chose to use a God to provide that meaning to your life. That doesn't make the God real. It just tells that you are choosing to believe something that makes you feel good. If you ever have any information about a God, any God, please share it with us. Mr. Thomas Whitfield, welcome to the live stream. Antomex, we have examined the remains of people and discovered where they grew up, what their diet consisted of, etc., and have done this for people who lived thousands of years prior to writing. Rocket Man, proof of God's existence. 1. Creation demands a creator. 2. Life demands a life giver. 3. Design demands a designer. 4. Laws demand a lawgiver. 5. Fulfilled prophecy. 6. Answer prayers. So, Rocket Man, you have gathered data, and that data has assisted you into coming to the conclusion that a God must exist, that God must be real. Right? Does that mean that God exists, or does that mean that you have come to a conclusion about something like God exists, which are totally different? It seems to me that by a process of analysis, you have come to a conclusion, which still you could be wrong. Verma Ami, hey, we have a caller, Prot Destroyer. Give me just 1 minute, Prot Destroyer. Verma Amy, in this world and the whole universe, the concept of Trinity, Vedic philosophy, is the one and the holy truth. 3 things are eternal. 1, Ishwar, God mentioned in Vedic philosophy. 2, soul. And 3, primal matter. Does that prove that the God of the Bible is real? I don't think so. You're protected. Groupthink is good for projects, but the groupthink I am referring to is groupthink that affects other people, like laws and norms, and like gods also. Michael Ward, welcome to the live stream. He is so pulling on his seminary education introductory classes. I guess this is in regards to someone else's comments, maybe. Hosea Live, why did you skip the rest of my experience? You only read the first message, and then you skip on to the message after mine. Hosea Live, you're gonna make me go back to the messages. I cannot read all the messages, so I have to jump around. Otherwise, the messages start to get old and old and old. So So if you really, really, really want me to read your specific message, make sure that you use my username in your message, and that is like a 99%. I won't miss your message. Otherwise, I just go jumping messages. Or just call in and you can ask me whatever you want. So let's jump into the Discord, because we have Prot Destroyer. Probably he wants to engage in a conversation. Maybe not. We'll find out here. Hey, Prot Destroyer. Maybe he's just hanging in there. Okay. No problem. So on the horizontal live stream, Diva Don't Play, poor Javier, he always has an answer for rejecting Jesus Christ. Is real. Why Javier doesn't believe what I believe? Poor Javier. I am the best person that has the truth. And because Javier doesn't have the truth like I have it, then poor Javier. It will be better for him to believe what other people are telling us through a book, that there was a guy that used to walk on water, and his name was Jesus, and he was the Son of God. So poor Javier that doesn't believe what other people are telling us. He continues, my man is dedicated to not becoming a Christian. That is absolutely accurate. I am not going to become a group thinker and a follower of other people's toxic doctrines. And Diva Don't Play continues, and God will respect your free will choice on Judgment Day. Which God are you referring to? Because there's more than one God. Remember, there's also a new God in town called Chulum that some people are starting to talk about and get interest in. So maybe in 10 years, you're gonna be one of a few people that are still believing in the God of Israel, which doesn't sound like the God of the world. It sounds like the God of Israel. So, Diva, you have a lot of internal work to do. You have to get down from that pedestal, my friend. I think it's distorting your reality, but it's okay. I think you're an adult. You know what's best for you. Jesse James, God has a God. Are you done complaining about God yet? You don't have any truth. I don't know, Jesse James, who's talking to or referring to. Are you crying? 3952 writes, I'll be back in 5 minutes. I am Prot Destroyer. Oh, okay. All right, all right. Mr. TXDAB786, welcome to the live stream. We disagree on everything, TXDAB, but I still appreciate you as a human being. I remember the times you used to just copy paste Bible verses. Now you engage in conversations, you present your views, you push back. That's nice. And still we don't agree. That's perfect. That's beautiful. Xnim, welcome. You're right. The God in the Bible says to kill all people, women and children. How can you worship a psychopathic narcissist? Whoa, Xnim. But I think the question is fair because some people are starting to come to the conclusion that the God is not so loving. Michael Edward writes, God doesn't must exist. Thou quickly come. Upland, hail Satan. Okay. Hey, Satan. You're protected or subscribed. Thank you for everybody that have subscribed to the channel. I appreciate it. Only do it, please. If you think there's something of value here, don't just, subscribe because I'm asking you to do it. No. Do it if there's something of value here for you. Mask Truth 999 writes, it's not even a subject of debate for me. God is, period. I agree with you. I totally agree with you, my friend. Nothing to talk about. God is real. Yeah, we don't do anything different. Yeah, God is real. But there's a problem with that conclusion, Masked Truth, because Chulum exists and is real. So you have some explaining to do. Diva, don't play, right? Javier, when we all die, and you write that because you have died many times and you know what you're talking about, because if you haven't died already, probably you're making this shit up. I'm sorry, shoot up. When we all die, the truth will be undeniable, known by all. That's okay, Diva. You can believe that. But like myself, most people don't believe what you believe. You can say that to make yourself feel good, because apparently you feel good about repeating these things over and over again. Like when people die, they're going to find out the truth. But you have never been dead, so you don't know what you're talking about. You're just guessing and betting on red. Just be straight, honest, and tell people, hey, I'm betting on red. I'm betting that the God is real. So you will find out when my bet is won. But until now, it is just your belief. Jesse James, you Javier. Okay, Jesse James, let me go back. Okay, so I don't have any truth. You are absolutely correct. I don't have any truth. If I have a truth, is that my truth is that I don't know anything about life. That is my truth. I'm an ignorant, and that is the source of my problems in my life. I'm trying to correct that. So what is your truth, Jesse James? The Lord of the Bible. Rocket Man writes, and my conclusion is you engage in double talk when you're faced with arguments that you cannot successfully counter. I don't know if Rocket Man is talking to me or talking to someone else. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard for me to follow a conversation among all the messages. I'm not doing this on purpose. If you think I missed one of your questions, copy, paste it, send it back, but with my username. That way I won't miss it, because I can see it in orange, big words among all the messages. I like to read all the messages, but sometimes people write very fast and the messages start going. And I'm reading messages from 10 minutes ago. So I have to jump the messages. Jesse James, not the Bible. No, I don't claim to have the truth like you. Jesse James, what truth are you referring to as my truth? Tell me what is my truth, because I don't know what is my truth. I just mentioned to you that if I have a truth, is that I don't know anything. I do not appreciate, Jesse James, when people lie. I don't appreciate it. It seems to me that we're adults here. Instead of trying to prove the host wrong and he doesn't have the truth because I have the truth. You stinky waters don't know anything. You don't have the truth. So because you don't have the truth, God is real. You see? Don't lie. Please don't lie. I'm not perfect, but, you know, I try to avoid it. Mr. Romans 1. How about Nepal and you don't think Christ is returning? This is just the beginning. Romans 1. First of all, for all those people that die, you know, in Nepal, all those families, man, I feel very bad for them. Hopefully they, you know, I mean, they continue in life and I don't know, I wish for them the best. But I don't think that by trying to talk about your beliefs about one of these currently available popular gods and trying to make it something negative that happened in this world and associate it with the God that you believe is real, I don't think it's good for you or anybody, like your family, your country, and this world. It seems to me that every time someone talks about the God and something negative happens, you better pay attention to God because that can happen to you. No. That's why Romans 1, I don't like to be involved in this violence from God. You know, I don't believe, I'm not involved in group thinking. I'm not involved in toxic doctrines of fear, like the God of the Bible. No, thank you. No, thank you. I think we can solve things in a better way. How about those people move to higher grounds or other areas where there are no floods? You see, fix it without a God. No need for fear, no need for threats. Because when you believe in one of these gods, apparently you like threatening people because you know down in your heart that this belief in God has nothing to do about believing in gods. You know that this is a game about controlling people by fear and love. That's it. There's nothing else. Believing in gods, you don't need a God. You just need you and your beliefs. Period. Your feelings. Mr. Rick Campanella, I think nothing is definite. We don't know what we don't know. Yeah, I kind of agree with you, yes. JD Advance, welcome to the live stream. At Romans 1, or it's trash and plagiarism. I know why you say that. Yep. Romans 1, think of it as a wake-up call. No, Romans 1, for the non-believer, this is not a wake-up call. For a believer, yes, wake-up call for you, reminder, you know, God can destroy you like a cockroach. It's a reminder for you, so pay attention, get on your knees, and get your head in the book. Read, because death can find you anytime, and God is going to be waiting for you. Let me see. Have you been a good person? Did you accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior? You didn't? You did it 99%? Go to hell. Romans 1, go to hell. I don't want to hear it. But God, I fought for you in all those live streams. Get in there, get in there. There goes Romans 1. All that defending the violent God for nothing. End up being tortured himself. Because your heart was not pure. It was 99% pure, but God wants 100% pure, not 99. Diva, don't play, Javier. I'm only here because I know Jesus is real, not Diva. In my opinion, you're here for emotional reasons. There's no other reason. Jesus is real for you. In your view, your conclusion, your belief, Jesus is real. That doesn't mean that Jesus is real. No matter how many times you repeat that and how many times you write it, you can even repeat it in capital letters and copy paste it 1,000 times. It's not going to make Jesus real. Just for you, it's okay. Jesus is real for you. Diva, don't play, continue. Mine in time, personal experience. I'm just here to share the good news. You're not here to share any good news. You're here because of ego reasons. You're doing this for yourself, not for God. You, as a believer, you're going to have a tough time believing in invisible entities from foreign countries and trying to be an honest person at the same time. It's horrible. Something is gonna give up, either the belief in the God or the honesty. Not both. This is like trying to put water and oil together. It's not gonna work.
Amen.
Hey, Prod Destroyer, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Allow me just 1 second.
So what's today's topic?
Don't tell me that you haven't seen the presentation.
God exists versus God must exist.
Yeah, well, my presentation, basically I'm saying that there's a huge difference between these two sentences or claims. God exists versus God must exist. What do you think?
So just wondering, like, you say that there's only one of two options, is being honest or believing in God, and the other one is, I see that you correlate like feelings and the necessity for in human beings for getting saved or whatever. I don't know.
Yes, 100%.
To make themselves Christians.
Just to clarify about what Prod Destroyer is saying, it is my view, and I could be incorrect, but as in right now, still my view that when you believe in invisible entities being real, it is my view, I clarified, that you cannot believe in, for example, in the God of the Bible and at the same time being an honest person. Why do I say that? Because if we engage in a conversation and we start doing some investigative work on yourself, we're gonna find out that behind your belief is not God, it's yourself.
Investigating from where exactly?
Asking questions, what motivates you to believe that an invisible entity is real?
So my own answers will be the source of truth?
Like, for example?
No, is that what you're saying? Like, I should investigate only through questioning me and providing answers to those questions to me?
Yes, I think that the answer to the belief in God is not in God, it's in the believer. So if we ask questions to the believer, we will find out why the believer is believing.
Like what question? Or what were the questions that you made to yourself in order to reject God existence?
For example, I stopped asking my question, is God real or not? And the question that I used was, why am I trying to decide if a God is real or not? Why am I asking myself this question? What's going on in my life that I need to believe that a God is real? And I brought it back to earth instead of being on the esoterics. And I understood that my life and my feelings, because were not resolved, I was trying to look for explanations outside of the world because nothing on this earth was making sense to me. So my belief was not about God. My belief was about my problems with my feelings, not with a God.
And now the world makes sense to you?
No, it doesn't. Honesty doesn't guarantee happiness or clarification about life. I don't know where I come from. I don't know what happens to me when I die. It feels horrible. Now, when I used to believe in God, these things made sense God was going to wait for me. He was going to love me and protect me and give me eternal life. That made me feel good. I came to the understanding that when a God has emotional effects on myself, that's my signal that we're not talking about a real God. You should not be getting emotional rewards or fears from a God.
Okay. I'm just gathering like info. If Aaron wants to take the voice, he can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the topic is right now.
Aaron, I don't know if you noticed, sometimes I try to put the title of the topic of the live stream, sometimes for the people in the Discord to know, just in case, you don't have to.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember. Is it something? Now I'm starting to remember. Is it something like God exists versus he must?
Yes, God exists versus God must exist.
Yeah. So what do you? What's the case you're trying to make?
Yeah, for example, some people tell me that God exists independently if I believe it or not, and I don't agree with that claim, because I think that someone is trying to, or is confusing that God exists with God must exist because of some conclusion that they have reached. Because of information provided to the person, they have concluded that God must exist, and that's how they know that God exists. They're not the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I do believe God exists, but I also do believe that God must exist. Like I told you, like many streams ago, that I believed you could prove God exists on paper and that how he should be, even if it's not the Christian start point. Like you could just start with logic and all of that.
So if you're able to prove somehow in paper that God exists, does that mean that God exists?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I got like distracted. Where's my headphones? Oh, there it is.
You're saying that you're able to prove that God exists on paper.
Yeah, I believe you definitely could.
Yeah, does that mean that God exists?
Okay, making sure my headphones. Can you hear me over here?
Yes.
Okay. Does that mean that he should exist?
No.
I definitely think.
No. Just in case, just to be on the same page. If you can prove that God exists on paper, does that mean that God exists?
I don't think the case is as strong to say yes. I think it could be probably leaning towards maybe no.
Right.
Although I still believe that, of course, that he does. And I believe that you could prove he should and that he could exist on paper. But to prove that he does exist, I mean, I can't grab him and hand him to you. I can't get his hand and put it in your hand. But definitely I would say that it is very, very illogical to say that God doesn't exist with certainty. That's why many atheists hate the title atheist. Even yourself, you wouldn't even want to call yourself atheist. You would say that you're open to it happening. You just don't think it's a Christian God.
Right.
So it's almost like even y'all know in your hearts that it's illogical for both ways to say with certainty.
Right. That's why in my case, I cannot say that a God doesn't exist.
Then why you say that is not honest? Because if you cannot prove that God doesn't exist, why would you say that believing in it is dishonest?
I think, Pro Destroy, you were there yesterday in the conversation that we were having almost at the end of the live stream. I think you were there, right?
I could have dropped like minutes before, so...
I was speaking to a gentleman, I think his name was Kevin, and I told him the exact same thing, that for me, it is my view that it's very difficult for a person to believe in a God and also be an honest person. And that conversation with him, in case you were not there, I was telling him that what he's calling the Word of God, which is the Bible, was written by people, and he could not get himself to say those words, even when other believers were telling him, please just say that the Bible was written by other people.
Oh yeah, our dudes, the Catholic friends, and even other non-Catholic friends of mine said that Kevin was being very difficult. I wasn't able to listen to anything he said though. But is that what you're kind of getting at? He wouldn't admit things, or what?
You will call it difficult. In my view, he knew what was going on with the conversation, and he could not get to be honest.
Yeah.
So that's
Who's
exactly what
honest?
I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
mean, many of us will tell you, of course, it was written by men,
Mhm.
but we no, none of us can be honest 100% in any of what we say always.
But some people, believers, will not agree with you with your statement.
But some of them is not all of them.
So which part do you think you're not being honest in relationship to God or your belief in God?
Yes, there are things in the Bible
That are problematic?
no that that we would like to have the knowledge about. The same Bible says, like, in certain topics, just don't try to fight with God, or don't try to get into this because you're just human. But we still try to do these reasonings over certain things on the Bible to try to fulfill, because at the end it's just lack of faith. Not that we don't have it, but it's not completed. So we always want to try to understand more and more about him, and what you end up with is, I'm just a human and he's a God, and there will be things that I won't be able to understand. So this,
if you allow me to say something about that, when I started losing my faith, that conversation that you just mentioned right there, I had it with myself. But for the first time, after having that conversation several times with myself, I'm like, man, I'm just a human being. What can I compare myself to God? I'm like, wait a second. I'm asking questions. And it seems to me that the answers don't make sense to me. So is it me that I'm just having a mundane mind, or I'm just trying to be honest with myself? Because the reason I'm believing in God, even though there's many things that I do not understand, I'm bypassing those understanding and allowing myself to feel something good about God in order for me to continue believing. That's not being honest.
but is there something that you believe on?
What do you mean?
Is there anything you believe in, like, this is true, I don't know, 1 + 1 is certainly 2? Is there anything you consider the truth? Is there any
Okay.
concept?
Yes.
Or not?
Are you talking about things in life, like we deal with life every day? Or are you talking about invisible entities, esoteric, something that is invisible?
Well, something that is invisible. Invisible is a really narrow word, because there are many things invisible that exist. But yes, we believe in an invisible being, but I mean something that you believe that is truth, and that you feel that you can prove it, like not like saying it's true that I woke up this morning or something like that, but like a concept, like something that
Yes.
will never stop being truth, or that would always be
But
provable.
But to try to answer your question, it's not like I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I need to know the truth. Because even if I want to know the truth, I have to ask myself, why do I want to know the truth? What's going on in my life? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling like anxious about my death? Is this something that I have to talk to myself and try to understand my livelihood, my humanity? Or do I want to resolve this with something external of myself, like a God or something outside to try to give meaning to my life? What's going on? I have to look around in my life to my family. What's going on? Am I not satisfied with my job? Am I not satisfied with life? Have I taken wrong decisions? Why do I feel this anxiety in my chest? Am I trying to find solutions external from myself in order to make myself feel good? Maybe do I need some powerful entity like a creator of the universe to make myself feel good, to give meaning to my life? So even if a person is trying to find truth, what is your motivation? Probably something very, very earthly, not something cosmic or esoteric. You know what I mean? So, and just to add to that, Destroyer, I think that there's a possibility that there's something or someone or someone's or group of something that has some intelligence. Why do I say that? Because of how we operate as human beings. I look at my eye, how it adjusts to light automatically. I don't have to do anything. My digestion is automatically. Something in my system is trying to keep me alive at all times, trying to keep me healthy for a reason, for a purpose. So yeah, I don't think this is by accident, but going from those thoughts to coming to the conclusion that there's an invisible entity from Israel that wants to have a relationship with me, what in the world? It seems to me that if I come to that conclusion based on my views about there's some intelligence in my body, in people's bodies, to coming to a conclusion that this entity or entities want to have a relationship with me, sounds to me that I'm very involved emotionally in my conclusions, which could take me to being absolutely and completely wrong about life.
And what is this sense? What would you say is life having sense?
Having sense in life?
Yes.
And that's a really good question. What I have been able to be aware around me and in myself to have something of value is apart from myself, my body, and try to live my life is my family, my loved ones. There's value in my sons looking at me or calling me daddy. There's value, and there's no God involved in that. Because the moment I start associating God with these things, I run the risk of explaining things in the wrong way based on what someone else told me who God is. I don't accept someone else's explanation of who God is because they could be absolutely wrong. Because by the time this book was written, people were inventing gods right and left.
And how do you know that your daughter and your family don't have anything to do with God?
I don't know. I don't know if they do.
So you
I'll
don't know.
prefer
So
if
they could.
Yeah, if I receive a hug from one of my sons, I'm not asking, is this from God? No, I just feel the hug and enjoy that moment that is going to exist forever in my mind as long as I'm alive. Why would I expend my
how
energy?
do you discard him? Just by answering yourself, saying no, it's not from God?
I will go back to the same thing. Why am I looking for gods?
Yes,
what's going on in my life?
Somewhere in those steps, you get to the conclusion, no, this is not from God. So in which exact step you get to the conclusion that no, this is not from God? Because you start wondering, is this hug from God? Where exactly? What is the question or the step in which the conclusion that no, it's not from God?
My experience with my family could be because of God, could be because of a God, could be because of some gods. It could be because of a society of gods that created us. I don't know these things. I think that probably the closest thing I have to be close to God, if there's a God or such a thing, is to try to go inside of me, because I'm the closest thing to God's creation. It's not even my family or my computer or this live stream, it's myself. So how about I ask myself questions? What am I doing, the things that I'm doing? Knowing that I'm a entity or a humanoid that operates under certain conditions. We gather information, we attach value to some of this information, and we take action on this information based on the value that we find in this information.
And Javier, that's basically what I told you, like, because you attribute basically the feeling aspect to will, and you collect the data, and you are the subject itself. That is the closest thing that you could link to a god, because that's how classical theists also link it. They're also like, yeah, what we get from God would be who we are, the intellect that we have to process, and the will power that we have to go through it, which is pretty neat. I think I told you that not too long ago.
So why were we asking about God outside of ourselves? How about we talk about you and me?
Yeah, I find that pretty interesting.
Yes, why do you have the thoughts that you have, and why you act on some of those thoughts and you don't act on some other thoughts? Why do you take action on the data about the God of the Bible and you're not taking action on the data about the God of Islam?
Mm-hmm. Javier, I got a question. Do you think that you would do you feel like there's a possibility that someone could go rather than outside to in, like inside out? Like, I first think about myself, why I am, what do I desire, and could they eventually, through a long path of questions and answers, find God, and then that God be Christian God? Is it possible? Not what you would say is right or wrong.
I think that we are so far away from that, extremely far away from that, because
But is it possible?
Yeah, I think there's a possibility of doing that, but I think we're very far. We are farther away now that we have these books, in my view.
Yeah.
Because people have decided to conclude what God is, not based on their direct experience, but from someone else's supposed experience with God, which could be absolutely wrong and take you in the wrong path in life to try to understand who God is. You could be going in the opposite direction.
Yeah. If there was a button and you could just destroy the concept of God and destroy all books and everything, would you press it?
No, you know why? Because I think that God is unimportant. If the belief in a God is giving you peace in your life, is giving you meaning, is giving you direction, is allowing you to live a less anxious life, why would you take the God away?
But who said that it's less anxious life with God?
Say that again, I'm sorry, Destroyer.
You said that God removes this anxiety from life.
No. In the case that someone finds, for example, if they're anxious about dying, now they know that God is going to give them eternal life. So that anxiety is removed or at least lessened.
Maybe it could be the opposite. Like, I will be more comfortable if I know that after I die, there will be no consequences. I mean, if you are like Brad Pitt looking guy with Brad Pitt's money, why would I want to believe in God? I don't want to be judged. I just want to have some fun. 30 years, 50 years. So why is that we have many rich and good looking people believing in God if you think that um, we all run to him because he will remove our anxiety, which in my case, I was much more happier when I didn't believe in God. Um, at least in my case.
Yeah, you were persuaded, or you chose to put yourself in a situation like, for example, someone walking into a ring or boxing. Okay? You're not gonna get hurt or punched in the face, most likely, okay, if you don't step on the ring. But if you decide to get into a ring, most likely you're gonna end up in one of two outcomes. You're gonna win or you're gonna lose. When you participate in salvation in God and you believe, you're jumping into a game, and you can lose or you can win. For some people like myself, I don't participate in salvation anymore, so being punished or judged is not a worry for me anymore.
So it is truth, completely truth, that there won't be punishment for you. Is that what you are affirming?
Yes. Yes.
That God doesn't exist.
No. A punisher God, for me, there's no value in investing my life thinking that there's a punisher God waiting for me. No, I don't participate in that. So I don't have that anxiety.
But does that mean that it's true?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter for you if God is real or not, because you have decided to believe even when you have not proven that God is real. So we're on the same. We're on the same boat.
No, I have not decided.
Are you a believer?
Yes.
Yeah. So you decided to believe.
No.
So you're not a believer.
Yes, I am a believer.
So you decided to believe.
No.
What do you mean no?
I didn't decide to believe.
Okay, so okay. You were led to believe. Is that better?
Led to believe?
Yeah. What would you define it? How would you define it?
Yes, I was led to believe.
Yeah. Yeah. So you believe.
Yes.
Yeah. Was God involved in that decision or that leading to? Did God tell you anything? Did God show up? Did God provide you with direct information? No. No, God was involved in your persuasion or leadingness to believe that God is real. Your whole entire leadingness is coming from other people leading you by providing you with information that they are providing you with, not God.
Okay, so
sorry to interrupt, but how could you know that?
How could you know what?
How could you know what his experiences were if God had talked to him or not, or interacted with him in any way? Isn't that kind of making an assumption?
Yeah, so I think Blaze, welcome to the live stream and thank you for calling in. You know, if someone tells me, Javier, but you're wrong because God spoke to me directly, I apologize, and I will tell the person, okay, could you please tell me when was this and what did God tell you? And we engage in a conversation. So this had happened before. Some people told me, Javier, you're incorrect. God spoke to me. And when I say I apologize, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So what did God tell you? Well, God told me that he loves me. I'm like, oh, okay. Some other people tell me, yeah, God spoke to me through a Bible verse. I'm like, no. What I mean is like God contacted you directly and gave you something, you know, like a word directly. You heard his voice, you saw something, and then I always find out that it's not the case.
I think it could. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hammer.
Oh no! I had one question only, and it was related to the transfer of information. It's Hammer Heretics, Javier. It's good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
So the question is about the transfer of information between intermediaries. So obviously, you wouldn't say that one needs to hear the theory of relativity from Einstein directly. Otherwise, you know, if you're hearing it from intermediaries like scientists or professors, it's invalid, right? I mean, in some of these theories can't be tested. So why would you raise this burden of proof for the Christian view or a believer, a theist's view, as opposed to a scientific view, when some of those theories have not yet been tested and we don't even have the capability to test them?
Okay, so stop me, okay, at any moment if you think this is a bad example. Someone tells me that, I don't know, Lincoln or George Washington was a person, and they're trying to convince me. I'm like, man, you know what? Yeah, maybe Lincoln was a real person, or George Washington, maybe he was real. Do you have pictures or something? You know, documents? Maybe I believe, I don't. It doesn't change anything. Now, you're gonna tell me that there's an invisible entity that created the universe, and the same entity wants to have a relationship with us. And not only that, he's gonna punish us if we don't believe in him and love him. I'm like, man, we better sit down and you better show me something about this invisible entity. And we're gonna sit down on the table, and you're gonna drop a book. You're gonna drop some information that you're getting from other people. You're gonna bring me some other people that are gonna tell us testimonies. So I think at the end of the night, after getting all this information, we can agree that you're not providing me anything directly from God, but you're providing me with information that other people are telling you about a God. In my case, as a preference, when it comes to God, I don't like to go by testimonies from other people or from second or third hand testimonies. When it comes to God, I prefer to have something closer to the God and not closer to the people that are telling me about a God, because they could be lying or being absolutely wrong.
And what will be closer to the God?
I think for myself, whatever for you will be closer to proof that Allah is real, or Chulum is real, or Zeus is real. What would make it for you?
No. I'm asking you.
Yeah.
What will be that event that would prove it for you?
But I'm not claiming that there's a God.
Right.
Okay,
I
so
think
if you allow me, if you allow me to just try to answer your question, just because I don't like for people to tell me, okay, you're not answering. Okay, I think that it's someone, I don't know, it comes in the news. There's a guy that is walking through hospitals, and every time that person touches someone on the head, they get healed. So he has healed 1,500 people. Someone stops and asks him, hey, what are you doing? How are you doing this? You're healing people right and left. Well, God told me how to do it. I can tell you how to do it too. Man, I'm going to listen. I'm not going to jump to a conclusion. Yeah, there's God. But that will be closer for me, something about God, something spectacular, something, really, really fantastic, something wonderful. Man, I think I better go that way, and not the way of the God telling me from the book that was written 2,000 years ago with the 500 witnesses that there's a God. So I'm going to listen to this guy better. And I could be wrong still. I'm not going to jump to conclusions.
I actually think that's a very positive way to look at it, to want to have firsthand experience. And I think that ultimately, for a lot of religions, not all, and it depends on the person, that's ultimately what they're trying to provide, is the actual firsthand experience. Because if you're not experiencing it, you're right, you're just listening. But there's a few things that you had stated that I'm kind of curious about. One of the things, and let's pause one at a time so we don't overwhelm.
Sure.
One of the statements that you had made is that you said that a deity or a god that would punish you. I'm curious where that context comes from, first of all.
Yeah, for the God of the Bible that we're going to be judged after we die, it could be a God that is going to punish us, because in my view, if God created a special place for us to be separated from him and not be able to come back, I think he had to create this place for us to be able to be there.
But it is there.
Sure, but as I understand it, so this is from my perspective, from my readings, is what you're referring to, which many Christians refer to as hell, is a choice. It was basically God does not force you to be with him if you choose not to. So it's the free will, it's the choice for you can have communion or not have communion and not have it forced on you. So at least it gives you a place for your immortal soul within the view of Christianity to still exist and not be forced to be in a position you don't want to be in. To me, that feels less like a punishment and more like the opportunity, like, hey, you can come into my house, but if you don't want to live in my house, you can go ahead and stay out in the woods. It's going to be harsher in the woods, but that's your choice. You can come through the door or not, and it's freely, the door is open. So choosing not to walk in feels less punishment to me. And I think there's some nuances in there. For example, take Catholicism. Catholicism has stuff like purgatory, for example, and it specifically says inside of its catechism that even individuals who don't know of God, of themselves, or the gospel, that there's still a chance for them to be saved because they can still hear God and follow his way without being directly taught it. So it's more of, I know this is God, I know who God is, and I choose to reject what I know is true. It's more of a direct tossing out from the way I understand it.
Well, I think that deviates a little bit from the main topic, but I don't mind at all. Okay. In my view,
my apologies.
No worries. No big deal. It's a little bit, not too much. But Blaze, in my view, really, with the God of the Bible, there's no really free will. Okay, because for me, a God that already knows what is the outcome of my choices, even before I was created, there's no choice. That will be my view. He knows everything. He knows the end. He knows the beginning. So he knows already if I'm saved or not. He knows already if I'm in hell already or not. So this thing about interacting with us and trying to guide us or to take the right decision sounds to me, okay, respectfully, sounds silly. It doesn't make sense that a God, all-knowing God, all omnipresent, all-knowing, omni-intelligent, will be wasting his time in interacting with someone that he already knows that we're at the end. Go ahead.
And that's a valid point. And I know that I might have missed the beginning when you guys talked about the necessity of whether God exists and how he interacts with the causal chain. So I guess I'll start at that first principle from the Catholic perspective and say that we do believe that God exists and that he must exist in order for creation to exist. Meaning that while God is wholly transcendent from the created order, meaning everything that's here within chronological time, everything that's tangible, palpable, experienced by us as hylomorphic beings, being both body and spirit, he is also relatively immanent. Immanent meaning that he is within us because the love of his creation sustains us. Not that he's like in us in a monist way, right, where everything's flat, but there's a distinction between creation and the creator. So best example I can give you, Javier, is the man in the mirror, right? If you've ever stood in a mirror, you are apart from the mirror, right? You are not a part of the mirror. You can see the reflection, and the reflection exists because of you and because of your standing there. The minute you step away from the mirror, the reflection ceases to exist. Likewise, if God were to pull out from creation or to step away, he's not like a cold watchmaker. He would cease to exist. Now, talking about causality, right? What you were just saying with will, because even in the Bible itself, Javier, you touched on this actually beautifully, is that we are little g gods, right? It says it in scripture. In Psalms, it says, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. And Jesus echoes this. And God in scripture actually has multiple reference, angels and demons, humans. There's only one capital G God, right, for us. But we are also gods because we bear his image. And because we bear his image, we can interact with the causal chain. So Christ, God, actually as a whole, is the primary causal agent. He caused everything. He started the chain. But primary causation doesn't mean omni-causation, meaning he didn't cause everything in the causal chain because we're all secondary causal agents. We have will, meaning we can make our choices. And just because one can see everything through omniscience doesn't mean that he is making choices for us, because he's given us the liberty with will to make choices. Now, he can choose to influence us in the causal chain because he's the primary cause. He can do whatever he wishes. But at the same time, he gives us the leeway to make our own choices, whether they're for the good or the bad. Like we were talking about with interpretation last night. You can come to your own conclusion because you have your own reason and will. It mirrors the creator, but is not the perfect mirror of the creator. We're not one with the creator in that sense. So we still have our own individuality and our own individual life experiences that have led us one way or another. You as a father, me as a father, we've come to different paths, but we share these similar experiences, but that doesn't mean that we all come away the same. So that's my TED talk for now. Sorry. Did I stay on topic at least?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully, Blaze, I touched a little bit on trying to respond to your question, but in regards to what you said, Hammer of Heretics, imagine yourself buying a lottery ticket for a $100 million lottery, and you go excited about going to buy that lottery ticket. There's excitement. There's a possibility that you win $100 million and you're able to help other people, your family, some poor people with that money. But let's say that you have some special power and you can see the future. Now you know that lottery ticket that you're going to buy, you already know that someone else wins the lottery and not yourself. The question is, are you going to be excited about buying a lottery ticket?
I feel like that makes some assumptions about God. And what I mean by that is we're assuming that the logic for being able to know what's going to happen, what omniscience is based around the rules and laws and logic that we exist inside of, versus something that's incomprehensible, which many of the different faiths that look at a divine creator, divine source, look at this beyond time and space, because time and space was a creation of this greater being. So if we look within that context, if we do a comparison, like an analogy, if we think about like a computer programmer who writes an algorithm, the algorithm is very limited on what it can do based upon what's programmed, but it can also randomize and give the appearance of a choice, even though it's all is programmed in there. But the choices that come out of that algorithm are going to be slightly different each time. So it's kind of like if God understands the mechanics of how the world works, can see what's going to happen, even though there's an element of choice within it, which then brings up the question of what is free will to begin with. Just because we make choices that seem random that we can't see the outcome of. I mean, I guess the similar thing would be if somebody draws back on an arrow and fires it, you can pretty much assume where that arrow is going to land based upon where they're drawing and aiming. So if there is a bigger picture that's being seen by a being that is not limited by our perception, that being could see and know what's going to happen without controlling what's going to happen at the same time.
And Blaze brings up a good point, because there is a distinction between chronological time, or chronos, which is created, and kairos, which is divine time, which is eternality, because everything that happens in the causal chain, God sees all at once, right? Whereas we see it in a linear fashion, and it's gradual, it's developmental. We see things as they happen. Right. So in terms of your actual question, would I be excited if I could suddenly see the future and would buy a lottery ticket knowing it was going to lose? No. A false association or false relation to God, who, while he is spoken of with human attributes, he does not have human attributes and does not see time in the way that we do as created beings. But I do see what you're trying to say, Javier.
So in the case of buying a lottery ticket, he doesn't see your choice already. I mean, if you have this power that you can see the future, you know that you don't win the lottery, you're not going to buy the ticket. So I think we're making a simple human example. Now imagine the creator of the universe. How boring would it be to try to get you to take a decision where he already knows what is your decision? I mean, if God is not bound by time, how far in the future does he go? I mean, you're dead like 100,000 millions of years. You already compared to the knowledge of God. It sounds to me, even if I'm trying to understand this with my human mind, aren't you doing the same thing? Even your explanation about what God could be and how he thinks and how he operates, you're doing the same thing with your human mind, just like me. So you could be wrong just like me, because you're not getting any of this information that you're coming to a conclusion from God. You're getting this information from other people, which they also could be wrong. Actually, you could be totally wrong about who and what God is, because your conclusions are based on information that has been provided to you by other people, not by God. Even if you believe that the information that's being provided to you by other people was inspired by God, which also you could be wrong. So
honestly, I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, honestly, I think that's a very valid argument and a way to look at it. However, I think there's some context to consider. First, I want to admit, yes, 100%, I could be wrong, and I know and acknowledge that. But if we were to go off of what was told to us or what we learned, one could argue that for everything that we know, including human speech. Yes. We're not born with the ability to speak the languages that we know. We're taught these languages. And
sorry to interrupt you. And to be in agreement to your view, an atheist could also be wrong.
Correct. And I can see that point. But what I was trying to say is, since we're taught, what words are and what they mean and what the context is and how the world works and how it operates, it starts out by stuff being told and dictated to us by our culture, society, our parents, religion, spirituality. Everything is outside influences until we start getting a basic understanding to where we can start experimenting on our own. And that's the place I personally come from. Is I come from how can I weigh this so it logically makes sense to me? Not just external information, because I've heard some of the arguments that you've made in previous lives, which is why I really wanted to talk to you, because I think you have fascinating conversations, and I really wanted to express and share my opinions. But when you look at stuff like, you say biblical references as an example, like, well, that was written by humans, and people argue divinely inspired or not. I kind of ignore the fact that, yeah, sure, it could have been written by humans, but what is the message ultimately? I kind of look for what I call universal truths. And this is why I argue that there could be an existence of a divine supreme creator that many religions call God, because the observation of firsthand experiences of being alive, like as an example, the self. There is a author by the name of C.S. Lewis, and in one of his books, I believe there's a section called, let's see, the name of the book is called, I'm looking at my notes, Mere Christianity. And there is a section where he's talking about basically the argument for God's existence is the God-shaped hole that exists in us. Basically, we hunger, so there's food to fill that hunger. We thirst, there's drink to fill that thirst. So the loneliness that we have, the relationship for existence of the universe itself, if that cannot be filled with inside of that yearning inside the natural world, it almost suggests that we were created for a world beyond this world. So that desire that is natural across all different cultures and all different religions, that yearning to connect with something from what source we came from, because we're here. So we had to have come from somewhere based upon the way our reality works. So then what is that we came out of? What is it that we're yearning for? Suggests that something could be there. And I know you've said previously that you acknowledge that there could be, you just don't have enough evidence or proof that there is. And that, I think, is where that firsthand experience comes from. If we look at the world around us and how the world is designed, it, to me, looks like intelligent design. And when you say stuff like, God should speak to us directly, I agree, but I try not to assume that if something created time and space, it has to communicate the way I communicate. And what I mean by that is, as an example, the conscience, that something feels off or wrong about a decision you make or a thought that you have. What is that? In my personal opinion and interpretation, through my spiritual experience, I would argue that that's our Creator speaking to us directly. I think the Creator speaks through us through all of creation. It's kind of like if you see a painting, you know there's an artist because you see the brushstrokes. You might not have seen them paint it, but you see the painting. And I feel the same way about some form of a divine creator. We see the creation. We can see the brushstrokes in the very existence of humanity and nature and art and music and everything around us. So to me, I feel like all of that points to the existence of a creator.
Okay. That's a lot of information. Let me try to remember everything. So,
Sorry.
for example, no, that's fine. That's fine. So on one of my scenes on the presentation, I have that some believers have come to the conclusion that God exists. For example, because of logic, because of prophecy, the Bible, laws of nature, first uncaused cause, personal experience, miracles, and testimonies. You as a believer, you can have all these things and still be wrong. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think any of us can be wrong at any time, but
Okay.
just like the concept of being in love.
Yes,
Is it
yes,
possible
hold on.
I'm not in love?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry,
hold
go
on,
ahead. Okay.
hold on. So, knowing that someone's having all these things, all this knowledge and experience, they still can be wrong. So, and same with the atheists, they can have all these explanations and, lack of evidence or whatever, and they still also can be wrong. So let me ask you something. What would happen if we take God away from your life? What would happen to you if we remove God from your life? Will your life continue exactly the same, or something is going to change?
We would have to first start by defining what God is. And
Okay.
I think that
Whatever you define as God in your life or relate as God being God, we remove that from your life.
because of my unique perspective on my spirituality and religion, all
Mhm.
existence would cease to be if God was removed from it. Like there would be no existence
No,
because
no.
of the way I view God.
Okay, so let's remove God up to the point, not to destroy your life, but for you not to have a relationship with God. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're suggesting, but I think it might help if I give a little context of my background. I'm not what would be classified as a traditional Christian. I'm more of an eclectic spiritualist. So
okay.
I've spent over 30 years delving into a plethora of spiritualities, including Taoism, also through Druidry, and Catholicism. I was actually a cradle Catholic, and I've been exploring it again for the last year because of the universal truths that I seek with inside of nature. I'm seeing them echoed inside of Catholic teaching. So it's actually saying, because like you, I was raised, right? I know you were a believer, you said, and you had stepped away. I was a believer and I had stepped away and searched elsewhere. And then I started to see what I felt was commonalities within existence, which now draws me back to restudy and reconsider Catholicism. So when I look at God, I think God, and it's interesting because some of the studies I've been doing is they say that Catholics say they do not know God, but they seek God. So even within Catholicism, the way I understand it, God is a concept. God is spirit. God is love. So the actual concept of existing and rational thought, like I would argue that in Genesis, when it says that we were created in God's image, that's our ability to think and be self-aware. So to remove God is to remove our very existence from my personal point of view. So even though I understand what you're trying to suggest, I believe that we cannot exist without God.
Okay, let me make it a little more simple. All these things that you said, that, God is a spirit or a concept,
Yes.
all those words or definitions, I don't think you came to that conclusion without information provided to you by other people, which could expose you as being wrong. But let's say that this belief in God that you have right now gives meaning to your life. Would I be incorrect in my assessment?
Well, there's two assessments that you made. So for your second assessment, yes, my belief in God gives meaning to my life. That is correct.
So just for the purpose of the example, okay, I'm not going to force you to participate in the example, but let's say that because you take a medication or something, now for some reason, the meaning is not there. Okay, so suddenly you have no meaning and you have no connection of meaning to God. Are you going to continue the same with your view about God, or something is going to change?
I think I see what you're attempting to drive at. The reason I'm having difficulty separating it out is the very cells that make up our body. To me, I have a very monistic view on creation. That since I believe that God is beyond time and space, what material did God use to create time and space other than essence, divine essence? So this world has some divinity within it. So to separate God would be to pull apart the threads of reality, in my view. Now, if I was to instead take the relationship and awareness, I think it would make me an empty shell, almost like a zombie, to not be self-aware, because I personally view, within Druidry, we have a term called Awen, or Emos in Irish, which is divine inspiration. I believe that the divine creator speaks through us creatively. So everything that drives me, passions to create, to bring about something, or to have compassion, or to feel, to love, all of that is driven by my relationship with the creator. So if the creator was removed from that, I believe that that would leave me an empty shell, incapable of feeling, self-awareness, or thought. That's my interpretation, at least.
Right. You're absolutely right, Blaze. Allow me to be more bold. The only
Please.
reason, in my view, okay, in my view, that you believe that God is real is because of emotional reasons, not because of God. You are already reaping the emotional benefits from believing that God is real, even when you have not found God yet and you have not met him. So we can agree that there are some benefits from believing without the direct experience of God. Someone could conclude that, hey, yeah, believing in God feels good. Believing that the most powerful being in the universe loves me and protects me and is going to wait for me when I die with, big arms and a hug, that feels good. It is my point of view that behind the belief in a God, whichever God, there's nothing other than feelings. Not only I'm saying that, I'm demonstrating that, because if you are a human being, you have to go to a human process in order to process information. The only exception to that is that if you are an extraterrestrial being. As long as you have a brain that collects information for you, and that information goes through a filter where you attach value to certain information and not to other information, and you act on the information that has value, that's how you end up believing in a God. Through this process that most people are not aware of. That's how you are able to feel like the God is real without being with God. It feels real. I felt the God. When I was a believer, I felt like walking in the clouds. It was a powerful experience. It was my body, my humanity doing this process. I catch it, I'm aware of it, and that freed me enough to understand that this belief in God that I have, I was doing it because of emotional reason. My seeking God was not because of God. It was because of me and my doubts, my fears, my anxieties, my worries.
Sure, but I think what you're doing is you're painting the opposite picture but doing the same thing. You're essentially allowing your personal perception and perspective, which I do believe our entire world is colored by our perception and our perspective. Like, we can literally alter our very reality by shifting our point of view. So if we shift our point of view in a certain way, we can make any reality happen, just like
No.
If like where they give people sugar pills and they get better, like you can make your own reality in a way, but that doesn't change what reality is. Like you can 100% hide inside of a cave and swear the sun does not rise because you do not see it, but that does not change what's actually occurring. Now, when it comes to a divine being such as God, to say that he doesn't exist because you think feeling drives that was to paint the analogy that I was attempting to earlier. It's like saying that you're in love. Love cannot be measured. It cannot be sensed. You have a reaction that might be able to be measurable, but how do you know you're in love? No one can tell you you're in love. You feel it or you do not feel it.
But Blaze, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you gave a perfect example. You said that getting inside a cave and ignoring the sun doesn't disappear the sun, right?
Correct.
So what I could say that you have gotten yourself inside a God of the Bible cave and you don't want to look at other gods. That doesn't mean that the other gods are not real.
Yes, that is a very valid argument. That is very true, which is why, so something I do as a hobby is illusions and tricks, where,
interesting
performance makes something disappear. The point is, from perspective, I can make you see something and convince you of something that's not real. We do this all the time to ourselves as human beings. We trick and fool ourselves, which is why we can't just instantly jump on, well, because of my current perspective or situation in life or in spiritual growth, I saw something or did not see something, therefore I'm going to dismiss it. But this is why I try to look towards others, because as human beings, we're social creatures. We learn from one another. So again, to go back to my analogy of universal truths, if there is no divine creator, there's a couple things to consider. The first thing is, where did we come from and what is it to be self-aware and exist? Even if we can't answer that, which most cultures, I would argue, look to some divine source. It could be multiple gods. It could just be the chaos that came in to be the balance called the Tao. Like there's different ways of looking at it, but ultimately everyone looks to a external divine source that started everything. And within our world and our reality, everything gets started until you start talking about energy. Then it can't be created or destroyed, and there's all these exceptions. So now I try to look towards learned individuals, scholars, psychologists, theorists, and all different people that get into different learnings and teachings. And then I observe these different cultures. Like I said, I've spent the last 30 years looking at all sorts of different types of spiritualities. Like I have my favorites, but I looked and asked myself, what is it that they're looking at and what are they observing? One of the analogies that I love is there's 3 blind men and they're all basically feeling an animal. And one of them is like, oh, this is a serpent-like animal that has like a little tuft of fur on it. And another says, no, this is a thick, strong animal that has a snoot on it. Like, oh no, this has limbs that are like trunks. And basically they're all describing an elephant, but they're touching different pieces of the elephant. So they're describing it based upon their perception. So I'm looking for those commonalities. And in a lot of spiritual realities, they're pointing to some form of divine source. So it seems to repeat the experience. Now, I can't just rely on that. I can't just, well, they said so, because what if a large group of people are doing this? That's where we have to combine our self-experience, listen to others, observe what they're doing and test it, but then also listen to our own selves. Because at the end of the day, everyone is going to have their own perspective and swear up and down that what they know is true and no one else is right.
I noticed that you said that, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that everybody's looking for something, for a creator. Yes.
They're looking for purpose in life. They're looking for what is the origin of the self. Because we're here, we exist, life happens, and we're self-aware. But what is the self? What are we?
But Blaze, I am not looking for a God. I'm not looking for a creator. And I think a bunch of people are not looking for a creator.
That could potentially be one of the struggles and why you have topics like this, like whether or not a God exists. Like, If you decide you are not looking for the ground and you never look down, you might be convinced the earth does not exist because you refuse to look in that direction.
But the same thing can apply backwards. Why are you looking for a God?
I think back to that C.S. Lewis statements, because there is this hole, this yearning that exists inside of us, just like the hunger for food or the thirst for water.
But no, wait. But how did you come to the conclusion that everybody feels that if you're not in everybody's bodies or have talked to everybody in the world? It seems to me like a generalization.
Fair. And you're right. And I am generalizing based upon my own experience. From my conversations and from the readings that I've done, I believe that I see the suggestion that it is common for people to look for a creator. So I could be wrong on that, and I admit that. But because I've seen it enough, and it's something I myself look for, I'm making the assertion that this is more than likely common.
So would I be wrong if I say that it seems to me that you have very close to a conclusion that there's something out there that sounds very much like the God of the Bible, and you're trying to collect information and then scan the area from other people and information to see if you're correct about your conclusion?
Yes, I think that's a very accurate way of putting it. I believe that we exist, and there has to be some way that we exist. And I think observation and reading different philosophies and psychologies and religions and spiritual experiences, that a lot of people try to explain this existence as pointing to a divine source, some place that we spawned off from. And then I compare religious and spiritual texts to look for universal truths, as I call them, commonalities within religion. I've seen passages in the Bible repeated within Taoism and Hinduism as an example. I've actually got a list of a couple if you want to hear some. And by looking at these, I'm like, okay, so why is this stuff being repeated? And ultimately, I'm using my own conscience, which I personally believe is our Creator speaking to us, to guide me. I know that there's no way for us to know. That's why it's belief.
What will be your most convincing piece of information for anybody that there's a God out there and could be the God of the Bible? What will be your most convincing piece of information?
Honestly, that is very hard to narrow down. I think there are at least two things that come to mind. And one of them is something that I think I can convince others with, and one I don't think will sell. The first one that I think is very convincing is the fact that we exist and are self-aware. If we cannot answer through any other means how we actually exist and are self-aware, I think that points to some form of creation, some source. The other one is the actual spiritual experience itself, which I admit can be misleading or assumptions that are not real, but I have had my fair share of what I would describe as miracles throughout my life that points to the existence of something greater than myself that cares. And that's personal though, so I can't use that as a selling point. Well, I've experienced this. That's no different than me running home to tell one of my friends and be like, hey, I just had this experience. They didn't live through it. So for them, it's just a story they're hearing. Like you're saying with the Bible. You're like, well, the Bible's just a story that someone else is dictating. How do I know it's right? Because you didn't experience it firsthand. But then the same thing can be true. If I experience it firsthand, how do I know I saw what I thought I saw?
So you
There's
think
tons of questions.
So you think it will be fair if I tell someone, hey, God exists, it must be real, a creator must exist because the universe.
Yes. I think that is the most convincing argument that reality exists. What is its origin?
So what if I tell you, Blaze, that the creator of the universe is named Chulum, not the God of the Bible?
I would argue from my perspective, and I've actually thought of this before, and in fact, it's interesting because I've found this within Catholicism as well, where I've heard Catholics mention that all religions have pieces of the truth. It's just Catholicism has the fullness of the truth. I believe that whatever divine creator is out there has been communicating with mankind since its inception. And all of the religions have been our attempt to hear it and to try to come up with a way of communicating. And that's why I'm starting to lean towards Catholicism a little bit, because I believe that there is a possibility. I'm not 100% certain. Again, I'm looking at a possibility. What if Jesus is 100% God in the flesh that came down to help shape things and correct them? Because so many people were doing guessworks with their religion. So for you to say that this is the creator, and I apologize, I forget the name that you mentioned, and you're saying it's this name, I'm saying that the creator is so prevalent and so obvious, like the air we breathe, so obvious, that you're right. You just have your own personal skewed vision of it versus having a direct line to it. And the reason I would argue for the possibility of Jesus and supporting that is because when I look at history, how did this small group, a group of individuals, the Jews, who were second-class citizens, who didn't have a standing army in a small area with a group of 12 individuals that didn't believe like the rest of them, how did that turn into a religion recognized worldwide? How did that survive? For all intents and purposes, it should have died out. But it's still here.
Yeah, so the question rises, have you researched Chulum?
I have not. Actually, I've never heard the name ever. So, but the fact that you would suggest it does not instantly dismiss it. It instead would then turn into a conversation. What are your personal experiences? Because this goes back to what I was saying before. Just because somebody says something, I can't just be like, oh, somebody said it, it's true, or dismiss it. Well, that's your experience. That has to be wrong. Instead, I have to ask myself, where did you hear the name? Who taught it to you? What sort of experiences did other believers also have of this being? Does it relate to any of the others? Like you mentioned the God of the Bible, but the way that I've perceived it, at least through Catholic study, is it's not the God of the Bible, it's the divine creator beyond our comprehension. The Bible is one way of interpreting that infinite being.
So it seems to me that there's a possibility that you put yourself in a cave with a creator with certain properties that you have seen through this process of research and understanding and, coming to this conclusion, but you have to put yourself in a, probably unconsciously, in a cave in relationship to Chulum.
I consider it more along the line. Well, first of all, there's so many different religions, cultures, and languages out there. I don't believe it's humanly possible for me to learn them all. So I'm doing the best I can with my limited perspective. In fact, I typically use what I call the mountain theory. I believe that divinity and God exists, but it's like the sky. All of us are walking paths up the mountain to try to reach the sky. We're trying to reach God. And all of these paths are religions. Everyone's taking their own road, and everyone swears that they have the safest road up the mountain. The higher we climb, we start looking out down around the world, we get new perspective. And no matter how far up the mountain we get, we eventually realize we will never touch the sky. But the climb up that mountain gave us the new perspective to see with new eyes. And like human eyes, we cannot see the far reaches of every inch of the earth. We can only see from our perspective. And this is true with the example that you gave of this being that I've never heard of. I have not perceived it with my own eyes or ran across it. I can't rule it out. I can't make a good analysis of whether or not I would trust or believe or think it's possibly real because I have no firsthand experience. But I don't dismiss people's experience without understanding what they are.
But Chulum will be dependent on your decision or conclusion that he's real to exist?
No
whatsoever. So I'm trying to bring awareness, Blaze, that the reason that we search and look for gods is because of emotional reasons. In the case of Chulum, the reason why people don't believe in Chulum, which is the only creator of the universe, is because Chulum doesn't have a book. Chulum doesn't market himself. Chulum has no heaven, no hell. Chulum doesn't interact with humanity. There's no emotional rewards with Chulum. Chulum is just the creator of the universe. That doesn't mean that he wants a relationship with you. What for? He's God. He has everything he needs. So it seems to me that people are not interested in Chulum because there's no emotional benefits in Chulum. There's no pirate treasure to found like the God of the Bible or another creator that communicates with us. That research, that trying to get to that God gives meaning to some people. that relates to providing emotional benefits to a person. It gives some meaning to their life. It gives them hope. It gives them direction. It gives them, again, meaning, without proving that whatever they're searching exists. Because if Chulung exists, or the God of the Bible, or some other creator is not of importance. The thing that is giving us life as human beings is no God, is feel.
I don't know if I agree with that. And part of the reason
I can demonstrate it to you right now.
Okay.
So my question with you will be, how do you feel about the entity or God or whatever you think exists? How do you feel right now?
I'm sorry, could you rephrase that?
Yeah. How do you feel about the God, creator, or entity that you believe is real? How do you feel about that entity right at this moment?
Overwhelmed would be the first thing that comes to mind.
So being overwhelmed, is that a negative or a positive feeling?
It's both negative and positive, because the feeling of being overwhelmed both drives us to find that equilibrium and balance, but gives the hope that that equilibrium and balance is possible.
What do you mean by that? To me, overwhelmed means feels good.
Well, I don't know about that. You can be overwhelmed with having too much work to do, where it's panic. You can be overwhelmed with so much good that it is busting at the seams. It's that little in-between place where you're kind of like on the tip of a knife's edge, where it could go either way.
Okay, so overwhelmed means good and bad.
Yes.
Okay, so where's the bad part?
I would say it's based upon the circumstances, yes.
No. Right now, you feel good, or you feel bad, or you feel good and bad about God?
Both.
Okay,
so here's the problem with being able to answer you straight. I'm not trying to beat around the bush. I know I am, but it's difficult to answer you straight, because I acknowledge as a human, I can be flawed, imperfect, and uncertain. I could be wrong, and I admit that, and I know that. It's not that I'm here telling you that the divine creator is 100% factual and I can prove it to you. It's not like I can take the divine creator and put it in your hand and you can feel the divine creator firsthand, undeniably. There's no way you can refute it. It's something that is like the quality of being in love. It's I can explain to you what I feel and why I feel it, but I can't have you feel what I feel.
Yeah, Blaze, do you understand what's going on here? Do you know how many times I have gone through this same process as we're going right now?
Oh, I believe you probably went through it all the time.
Yeah, so it's to me, it's absolutely obvious that you consciously or unconsciously know where this conversation is going. We're not going in the direction of God. We're going in your direction. That makes the believer a bit uncomfortable. When I ask the person, how do you feel about God? They will tell me, well, I feel good in the bad. Well, I feel correspondent to the process of believing. They will go with, I call it acrobatics.
Sure.
Because we know that I know that you feel good about God. How can I be so arrogantly sure? Because you are a human being. And as human beings, we have this pre-program in us to avoid pain and follow pleasure. You're not following God or believing in God because it's produced you pain and makes you throw up and you feel horrible and you feel fearful. No.
But it's hope. It's not necessarily guaranteed. Like,
is
even
hope,
the most about...
Is hope a good feeling or a negative feeling?
Hope is a great feeling.
Yes. You're not following God. You're following pleasure.
I don't know if that's the same thing. Because when you talk about pleasure, Pleasure can mean different things to different individuals, and that's the crux of this whole conversation. Like when you talk about does God exist, you're talking about something that is not testable within scientific means. If we have things that only exist if we can prove they exist, we limit our world and scope. In fact, modern science has been driven off of impossibilities.
Blaze, I'm sorry to have to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
It seems to me that you're taking this somewhere else. I tell pleasure, but let me tell you the more technical thing about what's going on.
Sure.
When you collect data about God, you find yourself at that moment with what I call feel states. For example, a person can find themselves in a negative feel state all the time about their mortality. And when they're getting older and older, that worry, that anxiousness about their mortality grows bigger and bigger. And they're starting to notice that negative feel state is not going anywhere, even when they are with their spouse, their families, their job, they're doing, no, it's getting bigger and bigger. So what's the only thing that is going to get that person out of that negative feel state? Some God that is offering eternal life. So a person takes that data, sees the value in that data, they're going to connect that data to their negative feel state, and they're going to take that negative feel state into a positive feel state. In that process, this is how we live our life with everything. It doesn't matter if the God is real or not. It doesn't matter. It's the data.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of true. I mean, it's the same way we choose what to eat and how to live a healthy lifestyle. Either you value your life and you try to strive for things that are good for your life, that improve your life, or you don't. And religion is the same way.
Yes.
I don't think you're wrong on that assumption, but I don't see how that removes the existence of God. Just like eating healthy, if it has the positive impact and effects on you, if you look at the fruit that's born of your decisions, that's how we learn as human beings. Right? If we touch fire and it's hot, our survival instincts pull the hand away from the heat. That is part of the human condition. If anything, I think that drives us closer to the possibility of a creator. Because, again, through spiritual dangers, we reflexively will move away from things that are dangerous. You do bring up a good, valid point, though, that God does not need to exist to follow religion or spirituality. That is true. But that's also why we need to assess when we follow spiritual paths. What does it do to the individual that follows a religion? If we look at
that what you said,
society,
Blaze, that what you said right there, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That what you said right there, you're going back to the same thing. You said something about a spiritual information. No, you're doing the exact same thing. You remove the God. Now you're going for the valuable information about spirituality. You're not really following spirituality. You're following moving yourself from a negative field state into a positive field state. You just putting a name on it.
But again, that's the human condition. How else do you assess? How do you assess what you do in life if you don't allow what is harmful for you versus not harmful for you? Like, how do you make your decisions?
Yeah, the problem is that in my view, this process is an instrument that we use to get us from point A to point B, not to determine truth. And that's exactly what we're doing when it comes to gods, which people are confusing God with information provided to us, supposedly being God, which you could be absolutely and totally wrong because there's a process going on internally that you're not aware of. That's how people end up voting for horrible candidates for president when it comes to elections, because they feel that they're voting for the right person. Feel is only a tool to get you to move, not to come to conclusions. You could be absolutely and totally wrong.
Right, but then how do we find truth? Because isn't truth technically subjective? I mean, as an example, at one time, it was a fact that the world was flat. until additional data. At one time, it was a fact that the atom was the smallest thing that existed until we found subatomic particles. Like, this is the human condition that you're explaining.
Yes.
I don't understand how that argument, though, proves that because we could be wrong means that we're not finding truth and that a God does not exist.
We are looking we're looking for answers in the wrong place. The first questions that have to arise is, why do you feel anxious about your mortality? Because I would answer that
with a God.
Yeah, because that negative feelings is the spark that is moving everything. So we got to talk about your negative feel state, not about God. Because if we are able to determine and understand what's going on inside of you, probably we're going to be able to help other people come out of traumas, come out of negative situations, take better decisions about life, about being knowledgeable about how before they had the knowledge about how they operate, they were easily fooled into voting for the wrong people or following the wrong God. Some people right now are following witchcraft and they think they're doing something good. So how about we find out?
I would challenge, how do they know that they're following witchcraft? Because as somebody, again, who studied multiple religions and spiritualities for many years, I would argue most people do not even understand what witchcraft is. They use the term as a generic blanket term without understanding its origin of where it came from, the original cultures, terms that eventually it evolved into, and the way it's currently practiced. And if you'd like, I could probably spend some time tracing it back to roughly the 1800s with what modern people think witchcraft is.
Okay, so crushing, how do you say, the small chickens? Pew, pew, pew. Baby chickens.
Chickens, like
throwing baby chickens against the wall until it explodes. Would you consider that witchcraft?
No.
Okay, so forget about the witchcraft. They're just worshiping the wrong God. They're worshiping Alodumare. They're worshiping Odin. They're worshiping and doing sacrifices of animals. And some people are doing human sacrifices. And they think they're doing the right thing. You know why? Because it feels good to them. That's
why I like to assess greater what are the fruits and what is coming out of it. So as an example, since we spent a lot of time talking about the Christian view on God and the Creator. So if we look at what the church is doing as an example, let's take the Catholic Church for an example. If we look at the schools and hospitals that they have built and the moral code and standard that a lot of them strive to live for versus not having. That's why I was saying, if you look at the cultures and religions around the world and how those cultures have been influenced by having or not having a religion, that is a good way to assess. And it is, like you're saying earlier, it is a feel-good state. So you're looking for, how does civilization thrive versus being destroyed? How does being humane and having a standard and quality of life, what is acceptable behavior and non-acceptable behavior? We have all of these things to weigh, but we drive them based upon what makes us feel good, what is a desirable state to be in. Because again, like you said, and I agree with you, that is the human condition. That is the way humans evaluate stuff. So when you're evaluating the right God or the right way or the right religion, we need to look at what comes out of following or practicing those religions. Because likewise, even if we're not 100% right, does it get us closer to the truth? Because we have to ask ourselves, if a divine creator exists, which some of us believe, you're right, I can't blanket statement everyone, but some of us believe, why would that creator design us to self-implode?
Yeah. You know, Blaze, by talking to you, it seems to me that you have created and made this structure about life and how you move yourself through this life with something that makes sense to you. And you feel comfortable walking yourself through this life under this structure.
Yes.
Yes. And the problem I see is not really a problem. The little disadvantage that I see is that you're relying a lot in coming to conclusions for your structure based on information provided to you by other people. Even if you include your own experience, you're doing a little bit of following and coming to conclusions because of following. I'm trying to bring awareness that when you believe in a God, unconsciously you turn into a follower, and you need someone else to provide you and feed you with information. That's dangerous.
I think every single human being has to do that.
No.
What moral code do you hold yourself to? And
I don't have a moral code.
So what keeps you from doing an action each day? Like, to deciding whether or not something is acceptable, how do you determine if it's acceptable or not?
Why don't I go killing people right now?
That could be one example, sure.
Yeah, so because I don't want people killing me or killing my family, so I'm not going to do to someone else what I don't want someone else to do to me. I figured it out that myself. No need.
Do you think that your upbringing and raising, the culture, the society, your parents had no influence on you determining that that's not the way to do? For example, if you were born in a different society where it was literally kill or be killed and you were forced to do it to survive, you wouldn't have a different perspective or perception based upon what was told to you or given to you by other people. My point that I'm trying to get at is culture and society. You follow that because you're raised within it.
Yes.
Religion is a piece of culture and society. I know I was influenced. I'm completely admitting that I have been influenced and have been following my upbringing, the way I was raised, and when I look for different religions, spiritualities, or guidance or morality, I weigh it against the way I was raised and see if it makes logical sense to me. Because that's the human condition. That's what we do. We're raised, we're told, we have expectations given to us, and then we reach a certain point where we start weighing it against the other things that we experience and seeing what fits based upon feel and feel alone. Does this feel right to me? Yes or no, and why? And most of the time, it's a question of, does it benefit me? Most humans are driven by, is this beneficial for me? If you take the case of a society, harming other individuals has negative repercussions. So some people decide not to do it, while others will do it anyway because they think the benefit of getting away with it outweighs the feeling of doing it.
Yes.
But some people, when they do it, it feels wrong. It feels bad to be done.
Yes.
And I think that's that voice from our creator, in my opinion, from my experience, that off feeling that feels like it's not right. That's the attempt for whatever created us to say there is an order to the world.
Can you program that voice?
I can't.
Yes, you can.
It's a feeling.
No, can you program that voice and that feeling? Yes, you can. Absolutely.
You can program it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Change it. Absolutely.
You know why can I say this with authority? I do it myself with people. I have done it. People with traumas. Change it. You can program this. When you accept information from other people and you do it without filtration, you're being programmed. You watch TV, you watch videos, you're getting programmed all the time. And you're going to react unconsciously to situations based on your programming.
So you're equating external influences to being basically programmed, or events being traumatic, lasting as in like mental scars type of a deal?
Yes.
Yeah, I could see that.
And not only with traumas, with normal behavior. You can influence behavior by programming someone. And it can be done unconsciously. People just watching TV or watching videos in TikTok.
So if that's the case, then why is it that the world is in the state that it's in? Why do we have the stability in some countries and the instability in others? Why has the world not self-imploded at this point?
Because, in my view, it's because ignorance on who we are and how we operate. So because we don't know that, we follow other people that we think that they are authority or have the truth, when we are being mistaken and we're paying the price for that.
Then how do we discover what is truth? Like
how about we stop
discover?
talking about invisible entities and trying to find invisible entities, and let's talk about the believer and the one that is trying to look for truth. Why are you looking for truth? What's going on with us? How about we help each other? How about we assist each other? How about we all look for lost people that are not found? How about we help people that have been through traumatic experiences? There's so much to be done down here, and so many people are focusing on invisible entities.
Okay, but what drives those people to focus on those things? So you were naming a couple things that I personally would argue are morally good to look for people who are lost to help individuals. But that morality, for me at least, was driven through religion and spirituality, which you're suggesting should not be something looked at. So if we remove that, what is the driving factor then that would benefit humans to do that? Because a lot of these moralities that come from within inside structured Christianity or any of the major religions are moralities that are driven from a higher source, a higher power, an invisible entity that you're talking about. So if we assess the outcome of it, maybe at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's real or not, because we need to look at the outcome and the benefit to humankind.
Yeah. So
people have driving factors for decisions they're making, and at the rawest instinct, humans avoid harm. If it hurts them in some way, shape, or form, they will have avoidance. So how do we keep ourselves from being instinctual beings that do not think or consider others? We need to elevate our intelligence and awareness. And a lot of thinkers, not all, but a lot of thinkers have brought that into the realms of religion and spirituality.
Well, you said a lot there. Let me see if I can respond. It seems to me that for humanity, believing in invisible entities is a problem. It takes the energy that should be invested down here and is taken out to the esoteric. If anybody wants to think about God and the morality of God, I think about Chulum. Chulum already gave you everything that you need. The only thing that Chulum asks for you is to please don't follow him.
Mm-hmm.
Because he already gave you everything that you need to live your life. You need truth, you have it. You need guidance, you already have it. Don't be looking for him or try to follow him. So, how about you focus those skills or powers that Chulum gave you, and you put it to work with other people and yourself?
What do you think that these religions are expecting their followers to do, out of curiosity?
It seems to me that whoever wrote these books, these people were aware of something that most people are not aware of. If I myself find myself in a position of power, I wouldn't want to share that information with everybody, because I want to put other people to work for me. And that way, probably I could make myself multi-millionaire or do something and not have to work like low-level jobs. So I think that some people figured something out many years ago, and they're like, you know what? How about we take the power of the people and we take it very, very far away where they can never find it. For example, let's take it into an entity that is living outside time and space.
So you think it's a system of control, basically?
Self-sabotage, I would sell it more. Because once you get yourself involved in a war of field states that is not of your own creation, someone else is controlling you.
Okay, so what does that person get benefit-wise? Because we are also talking about religions and spiritualities that have far surpassed the lifetime of the individuals who created it. Not to mention the fact that once that individual is gone, what driving force leaves the others to keep it going? Like, if we look at some, for example, let's again take some of the Christian faiths. Look at what they're doing. Some of the self-sacrificing, donating time, effort, building places for homeless people to live, feeding the hungry and the poor. Like, they're giving of themselves, they're giving to humanity. It's contributing.
This is not God doing it. This is human beings doing these things by their own accord.
But what the spiritual individuals say, that driving factor, the reason that they're doing that is they describe God as being love. This is why I think it's important to discuss what is God and defining what God is. I mean, I hear you saying not to look for it, but a lot of the things associated with this infinite, omniscient, omnipresent being is literally within all of these feelings that drive us. Our moral codes, or what feels right on the inside, or our capacity to care and feel for others, is all driven out of the created source. These feelings and emotions exist because they came from somewhere.
Wouldn't that
And
be
a
your
lot of
belief?
religions, right? That is that you're right. That is what I believe, but I'm not the only one who believes that. And if these feelings exist, if they did not come from a God, where did they come from, and why are they here? By observing and looking at the divine, at looking at spirituality, at looking at the source of creation and stuff, it drives us with a purpose of saying, I'm doing this because I tell you it's the best thing to do, versus we were created, we all feel this deep inside of us. It's the human nature, it's the humane thing to do because we were created and designed to do it this way. That is a lot more impactful and a lot more of a banner to get behind than just because one person says to do it.
So can you get a person to help poor people and feed poor people, and that person be an atheist or an unbeliever?
Yes.
So where's the God in their actions?
They're just not
conscious.
Right, they're not conscious of the God. That doesn't mean that the God is not there. Like even you yourself had admitted, there's the possibility of a God. If a lot of these religions and spiritualities are pointing to a source for the ethical values that are inherent in human nature, and they're saying that it's an outside entity beyond time and space, first of all, they can't prove it's right, but we can't prove it's wrong either, and it's still a driving force. It still came from somewhere.
So let's say,
why is it so harmful to believe that that source is external? And if it feels so good to follow this way, why is it?
Let's say that I agree with you.
Sure.
Okay, that's God doing this, but that is Chulum. That's not the God of the Bible.
What's the difference?
Chulum already gave you everything that you need, your moral code, whatever you want. To explain it with a God, that's Chulum that already gave it to you, and Chulum is not interested in having a relationship with you.
How do you know?
How do you know it's the God of the Bible?
I'm suggesting from my perspective that there is no difference. There is a divine creator, divine source of all of creation.
No, wait a second.
Whatever they want.
No, wait a second. There's a huge difference. One doesn't care about a relationship with you, and the other one is desperate to have a relationship with you. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that could make a huge difference, but I would argue, what evidence do we have that the being that is the creator, that the creator does not care? I personally, from my personal experiences, from what I've been told by others, read from others, and have observed firsthand, suggests that what created us cares about us because of the design of the world. This is my assumption, and I don't expect everyone to believe it, but it is what drives me personally. So, and I don't think I'm alone on that assumption.
Yeah, but we go back to the beginning. You still could be wrong, and the only thing you're coming to that conclusion and that belief is because it makes sense to you.
Yes, but the same can be true about any religion or spirituality.
Yes,
there's a lot of things that we don't know.
Absolutely.
As far as we know, this entire reality could be a fever dream.
Yes,
it absolutely. Is very possible we are biological computers. And
I agree.
When we run our course, we cease to exist.
Yes.
So it is up to us as humans to determine how we spend our time. But again, to use my analogy with love, when you feel yourself in love and you like you said, that good feeling that drives you, you follow that good feeling. So for those of us who feel and sense the creator from our own spiritual experiences, we choose to follow that and have that relationship for it. You said yourself you had felt when you intentionally sought God, you felt God. And that could be you convincing yourself of something that's not there. That is very possible.
Yes.
That could be. But what if it wasn't? What if you actually had a relationship with the actual creator and had a moment and you chose to shut that off? Just like somebody who closes their eyes to the light. The light doesn't go away because you close your eyes. You saw something, so something was seen, even if it was just in your own head, which could then, of course, change the nature of what our ability to interact with God is. What if it is like a radio signal? We have to choose to tune in.
But Blaze, that will always take you back to square one, because you're betting on red, I'm betting on black.
What is red and black in this scenario?
Betting on God, betting on no God, or betting on a different God, or betting on a humanoid, or betting on a computer, or betting on an alien, or betting on anything.
Okay. So in this particular scenario, I'm betting on the existence of a divine creator, source of creation, and you're betting on not. But in your scenario...
No. I'm betting on asking questions.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm betting on asking questions. I haven't come to a conclusion.
Fair. That's fair. That's why I wanted to talk to you. By the way, I'm enjoying this conversation, if it's not clear. That's why I wanted to talk to you, because I think these are important questions to ask ourselves. From my perspective, I don't think anyone should follow blindly. But I guess the difficult thing in this particular conversation, which I appreciate the challenge, is at the end of the day, a lot of the questions you bring up, you do have to make a bet. It is a gamble. So what is the pros and cons? If I feel something, and I say, as an example, I say I'm in love. If I am in the state of being in love and there are benefits to my relationship because of the love that is shared between me and my partner, why does it matter? Why is that a bad thing? In this case, in this scenario, I am looking to the divine creator and I have a relationship with the being who created me, and I am seeing benefits both for my mental health, spiritual well-being, and I'm seeing what I would describe as miracles. And if this is just my perception, that I'm pretending that I'm feeling and seeing this, and that just happenstance and I'm focusing on the positive, so what? If at the end of the day, the benefit is still there, what am I doing to my life that harms me by accepting that versus casting that out because of doubt? What does the doubt bring to me or give to me?
The example that you gave about the blinding love, being in love with another, human being.
Yeah.
It could be beautiful.
Yes.
It could be not beneficial. It could be bad. It could be horrible. And it could be deadly.
Sure. So that's why I think when we choose a religion or a spirituality to follow, and honestly, this is one of the things that has made me study Catholicism recently, because I'm looking at what Catholics offer the world and each other and what you get from being a Catholic. In most cases, it's about learning morality, holding yourself to a higher standard, and being charitable to all humans around you. However, in some of the neo-pagan faiths that I have studied, not all, but a lot of people are about self, me, gimme.
You did a little switch there.
I'm sorry?
It seems to me you did a little bit of a switch.
How so?
Because we're talking about the reliability of coming to a conclusion based on how good you feel about the conclusion. And I'm telling you that it could be deadly.
Sure, but how is it deadly? In what fashion?
So you
take
find
Christianity, for example.
No, hold on. You find a girl, and this girl is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And you get this data from this girl about the hair, the eyes, the beautiful smile, and you connect with some negative feeling about yourself, or a little bit of negative feeling, like loneliness, and this is the perfect girl that you have as an example of the girl of your life. And you know that if you don't take action, you're going to feel horrible, and you want to avoid that negative feel state. So you're going to get that data, and you're going to move yourself into a good feel state by approaching this girl and making her your girlfriend. And people are telling you that girl is not a good girl. but you don't care about that data because you have nowhere to connect, because you have no negative field state about that. So you come to the conclusion because you feel good about this woman. You think that because it feels good, it's going to be good for you. 3 months later, she's sleeping with someone else.
That is a great analogy. Honestly, it really is, because that is why when it comes to spiritual matters, we have to discern with more than just what we're told and from our firsthand experience. We do have to use our own ability to rationalize and reason when we're going through stuff. We should be able to ask the big questions. We should be able to ask for evidence and experiences. We shouldn't just buy into things because we're told to do so. I actually applaud your willingness to ask and question things and have doubt. Because what you're doing here specifically in this analogy is you're painting a really bad scenario to give the example. But this same thing could be true when seeking some sort of relationship with whatever created us here. If you actually reach out and connect with the source and it does care. Again, I'm painting a very, very specific thing versus just whatever's going to answer me.
But
just because you reach out spiritually, you could get an answer. That doesn't mean what's answering you is what you want to be answering you, and it might cost you something.
But you know, Blaze, we're talking about the superficial aspects of these field states. This goes deeper. What do I mean by that? Even your question could pose yourself being asking that question from a field state and you are not aware of it. What do I mean by that? You're asking questions that you think you're being, you know, researching and asking questions. Even your question can bring you to a positive field state and you're not aware of it.
But I am aware of it. Not only am I aware of it, but I admit to it. But my question for you and challenge for you is, what other means do you have for discernment?
I think as a human being, I'm not going to get away from field states because that's how we move in this life. Okay?
Right.
But I'm trying to understand myself more to the point that these field states are supposed to be a tool, not a means of finding truth about anything. So I think I'm learning myself how I operate as a human being. I think if I had all the answers about how we operate, I would not be here doing live streams. Probably I would somewhere else most likely. But so far, I think the direction that I'm going with this, I think explains more about life than an invisible entity or a religion explaining life, because most of the answers are not in the God, are in the believer, not in the God. So to answer your question about how are we able to determine that something is true, man, one of the best things is not jumping to conclusions, not so fast.
I agree. Again, that's why I applaud your willingness to ask questions. But at a certain point, as a human being, we thrive off of community. So we have to ask those who came before us, teachers and philosophers and doctors. Like, for example, if you're sick and you're not feeling well, do you just deal it with yourself and assume what you want to assume? Or do you go to someone who is learned and who have studied these things? That's what I'm suggesting when it comes to religion and spirituality. When you are asked to believe in something, like you mentioned, oh, the books from 2,000 years ago. Yeah, okay. So here's the thing, though. Why did they write it down? Why did they keep it alive? And why do so many people believe in it today? Why have cultures been changed? Why have people's lives have been changed? And if you try firsthand and experience it and evaluate it for yourself, then you can have firsthand experience and data, and then you can do comparative data with other religions as well. I'm not here to tell you to go become a Christian. I'm not here to tell you that you need to stop asking questions. In fact, I wanted to get on this live and have a discussion with you to say, yes, keep asking questions, but don't hold yourself up so much in the question of, I can't answer this for a fact, therefore I should dismiss it. But instead, ask yourself, why have so many people come to a conclusion that I cannot come to myself? And what is it that you need to either determine for yourself where we came from? Because we came from somewhere. I think we can both agree to that. Like, even within science, even if you want to say the Big Bang, there is something within Catholicism that they say that truths in science and truths in religion and spirituality do not contradict. Truth does not cancel truth. So you should be able to see a parallel. And if you do not, it is either bad science or it's bad theology.
It seems to me, Blaze, that even if you find experts, doctors giving you information, I have learned my lessons in this life that you don't jump to conclusions either by the consensus. Because in my experience, I have found out that lots of doctors don't know medicine.
Yes, very true.
Okay,
they can misdiagnose. They can give you the wrong medicine. Yes, absolutely. They can miss stuff.
Yes. So also people that supposedly have been in communication with God, they could all be lying or could be mistaken about their experiences or maybe exaggerating. Also, other people are telling us, hey, been there, done that, believer for 40 years, there's nothing there. What do you do with those people?
Right. And that's why I suggest firsthand experience, because I've questioned the same things myself. Like I mentioned with illusions and tricks, I can look at someone and make an assumption or a judgment, or I can think I see something and I could be wrong. The same thing is true about spirituality. From a personal perspective, I believe we are more than the physical matter of our bodies. I believe that we're not humans having spiritual experiences, to paraphrase I believe he was a saint, but that we are in fact spiritual beings having a physical experience. So I believe that we are more than the physical matter of our bodies, and therefore we should use those senses that are not just physical to experience God. And in my personal experience, I feel like I have. I feel like I've had experiences that would point to a creator. So I'm using the discernment of my own firsthand experience, and I would encourage others to do the same.
Okay.
And that's...
May I ask a question?
Let me, if you don't mind, Desiree.
Yeah,
Desiree, one moment, please. One moment.
If you
yes, one moment. Let me ask one more thing, Blaze, if you don't mind, and that's moving by my last question, okay? Blaze, what is the closest thing for you to an experience with God that doesn't relate to your feelings or emotions?
That doesn't relate to my feelings or emotions?
Yes.
I mean, there has been numerous things, I guess, that I have had
just
situational,
one.
like just one.
Yes.
I mean, I guess probably one of the situations, which again, I understand how this can sound, but I'm going to go with it anyway, because for me, it was a real experience. I have had situations with near-death experiences where I avoid death by moments, and I felt something in the moment, and I looked up and avoided being hit by a vehicle that would have killed me, would have crushed the car.
But that relates to your feelings.
Well, but that's why I'm like, so how do you separate feelings from experiences that you've gone through?
Yeah.
Like if you go through an experience and you feel something of a supernatural sense, whether that be a vision or healing or guidance or a dream, whatever the case may be, you're going to have feelings and emotions about it.
I should have been more specific. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
What is the closest experience you have had with God that doesn't relate to a positive feeling? Because the one that you just mentioned does relate to a positive feeling.
Sure, absolutely. I have had situations where I have been shamed and humbled in a way that made me reassess my life, and I took that as guidance. I have had situations where I have...
But that also relates to positive feelings, because receiving guidance from the Lord, the most powerful being in the universe, must feel good.
Oh, I disagree. The learned experience was very painful to go through. Yes, I've twisted it to be positive. And that's actually something a lot of believers do. They'll have a negative experience and say, this was intended or part of the plan because God wanted something greater for myself than I thought I needed.
So the result
like
was a
say,
positive
unanswered
feeling.
prayers. Right. But
Yes.
again, from perspective, but the initial experience, I can promise you, was not a very good experience at all.
Yeah, the
result
initial
was.
the initial experience is not relevant. It's the result.
Okay. In that case, I do not think that there is a possibility of one because it is my belief that, again, that God is love and positive. So everything that is good in this world comes from our Creator. Everything that is bad is choices not to follow or go with the Creator. So the opposite is without God, but with God, it's always positive. So I don't have one for you.
So imagine myself. That is my rule to tell when a God is not a God, when your feelings are involved. Let's give a chance to Desiree SNN.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sorry I talked so long.
No, don't worry.
No, and this what I want to bring up you may want to short circuit, but either one of you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, Blaze, how you view the state of existence on the spectrum from mental stuff to physical stuff.
What do you mean by on the spectrum? Could you clarify that?
Well, you can either be completely mental and there is no such thing as physical reality, or you can be completely physical and there is no such thing as mental stuff.
Oh, I gotcha. I would, if I had to guesstimate, I would say somewhere around 80% mental. I believe physical data feeds into our mental state. So I think that the physical just feeds into what I believe reality is, which is purely mental. It's perception from your mind. That's my opinion.
So my question on that is, how would that be constrained?
How would it be constrained? Like, how is your
how
experience
does physics
limited?
work if it's 80% mental?
Because I think things can happen and exist without you experiencing them firsthand. So your ability to experience it firsthand, you have to process that into your mental awareness. So if you're not aware of it consciously or subconsciously, you miss it's still happening. You're just not a part of that experience.
Right. So in a mostly mental world, what delineates the line from one mind to another?
Ego. I think we're all
What is
interconnected.
Is ego something different than a mental thing?
Ego is focused on the self. It is. And I think our mental blocks keep us from being connected with others. I think we are ultimately connected on the greater scheme of things. But our perception is focused in on the self, on the ego. So it limits our view and scope. And I think this is part of why people have spiritual experiences. They open themselves beyond the self, and they're willing to open themselves to the possibility of the existence of a God.
Clearwater, I would ask the same thing of you. Where would you fall on that spectrum?
Can you repeat the full question, please?
Do you think the state of reality is physical, or do you think it's mental? Or do you think it's somewhere in the middle, and where would you fall on that scale?
I think that if I understand correctly your question, I think part of reality is invisibility. That's how we operate in a mental level. We have information in our minds that is invisible. And through this energy that I probably have the wrong name for it, I call it feel, we're able to bring this data, invisible data, into reality, into action by the power of feel.
So something in what you're saying makes me want to say, in a purely physical reality, the mind does not exist. It is a product of physical processing. There is no separate mind. That's more what I'm talking about.
Yes. And in a sense, I agree with you, but that doesn't take away that in your mind, you have data.
Right, data would be a particular configuration of the physical
brain,
right?
Of the brain, yes.
Yeah, so you lean very heavily towards physical. There's very few mental things. right?
Yeah, I kind of understand what you're trying to say. I don't know how much would it be mental and reality, or physical. It's hard for me to answer that. That's a good question.
Would you agree that for you, mind or thinking would be the same thing as walking?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that
walking without a pair of physical legs.
But you cannot
have thinking without a brain doing
yes,
physical things.
Exactly.
Is what I'm saying.
Yes, exactly.
So I think the fact that Blaze is looking at it from a very, what I call idealistic point of view, and
Yes.
you're looking at it from a very materialistic point of view or a physicalist point of view, either one, you're going to talk past each other, because in the way Blaze sees the world, God is very easy to come to. If most of the world is mental stuff, what's one more greater mind? Whereas for a physicalist, how do you make a greater mind without a greater substrate?
But in the case of what I think are defining as material,
Mm-hmm.
and in my view, you require the data in your brain in order to do whatever you want to do on this reality, in this material space.
Mm-hmm.
You require that information from your brain, which is again invisible.
You wouldn't be doing anything, right?
If I don't have the data, I wouldn't be doing anything. I require data and I require feel in order to be able to take action on anything.
Well, but I'm more saying in a materialistic world, there is no you to make decision. It's more of a causal chain, right? Would you agree with that?
I think myself is the data and the feel states. Because not two people have the same feel states.
The definition of your history of what you've been through, right?
Or my programming, yes.
Yeah. Whereas I believe, and I'm not trying to speak for you, Blaze, so please let me know. But Blaze would say you are a mental thought that can change the outcome of something. And therefore you determine the physical state that is. Is that fair, Blaze, or am I way off?
To a certain degree. I mean, I think there's a certain bit of influence that we have. But, I mean, I think that reality is more complex than simply mental or physical. I just think that our experience as being alive and being self is experienced through the mental realm with influence from physical reception. Whether that be vision, sight, hearing, our senses basically feed into it. But I think what is actually happening and what actual reality is much deeper than that.
Well, so I kind of want to explore that with you a little bit and see if I can push you more towards 100% ideal.
Sure.
Why do you need a physical representation at all if you can give bounds to the mind?
I just think it's a current state that we're in. I think it's part of the progressive level. I think that think about it like a computer, right? A computer has a program that is into it, and it collects and stores data on hard drives, software and whatnot. All of that exists with an energy level. It can be replicated onto other drives. It exists outside of the physical hardware, but the physical hardware contains it, and its interactions with the data that's stored there is through the physical hardware, like keyboard input, for example, or mouse. So I think
as like a physicalist argument.
Okay.
Because if you take away the computer, how do you configure that energy without a physical substrate to guide that energy into the configuration that makes that data?
So as an example, if you store stuff on the cloud, it exists even without the physical hardware to have it exist in. like our physical body.
No.
I'm suggesting that our spiritual essence, our mental awareness and all that is more than just the physical body. It's not grounded and stuck in here, but to interact with the physical world, which is one aspect of reality, we need our physical bodies to interact with that. And in my opinion, physical interacts with physical, spiritual interacts with spiritual. And I think that we can have an effect on each of them. That's why our thoughts can make us feel better or worse. Our mental state can have a physical effect on us, just like our physical effect can harm us mentally. So there's a connection there, but I do not think ultimately reality is just the physical world.
When you say on the cloud, what exactly are you talking about?
So as an example, literally, if you're asking literally, like Google, you can have a Google Drive, which is stored on the cloud, which is backed up on other servers. So that data exists outside of your physical hard drive. Right.
No, it exists on a hard drive.
Yes.
You cannot have the cloud without servers and hard drives.
Yes.
There is no cloud that exists.
Desired.
But it is not,
right?
It is not a hard drive by itself. It is backed up through multiple servers. So it exists in an energy state, which could be physically located on your computer at home, but it can also be on multiple servers and backed up so that it is always present. And I'm suggesting the same thing spiritually. Yourself, who you are at a soul spirit level, exists beyond just your body. And it is part of a world of pure energy, in my opinion, from my spiritual experiences.
Desired, if you want to...
Okay, yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, if you want to say something like a conclusion or something, because in 3 minutes, we're done with the live stream.
Oh, yeah. I just, the way you guys were talking seemed to be trying to understand. It seemed to be talking slightly past each other in a way that I thought that might clear it up, is all. That, or not clear it. I'm not, all knowing. That's not what I'm saying. But I thought maybe my input might help bridge a gap or two in the conversation you guys have had so far. I don't know if it did or not, but I was hoping that maybe it would.
I noticed that you didn't ask about feel, because I think that's where the magic takes place.
Yes, because in a way I did, right? Like in your, or I intended it to be that way. If you're a physicalist, there is no such thing as feeling. If you're a idealist dealing in the mental realm, feelings are what bind you, I guess. Would you agree with that, Blaze?
So by the definition that you just said, I'm not a materialist, or at least I don't see it that way, because
not a full materialist.
No, because I don't know where this information that is coming to our brain is coming from, and I don't know this energy that I call feel also where it comes from.
So would you be like 80% physicalist, where Blaze is 80% mentalist?
I stay
idealist?
Yeah, I stay away from labels, because then I will put myself in a predicament. So I'm elastic, I'm dynamic, and I could be wrong about certain way of thinking that I have. So that's why I have these conversations, because probably it could help me to see my wrong thinking or confirm my correct thinking.
That's fair. And I just enjoy this conversation when it comes to discussing God, because, and things like God and stuff like, and those types of conversations, because do we actually have access to reality directly, or do we just have access to our senses?
Nice.
No.
And so
I like that.
As far as I'm aware, it's called Kantian agnosticism, where you can't know the state of reality. It is simply an opinion on whether you're 80% idealist, like Blaze claimed, or I'm going to throw 80% physicalist on you, even though you don't accept labels. You know what I'm saying? I mean that in the sense that you lean materialist. I think that's a fair thing to do, but it's wise to hold the agnostic position, because just because I have a screen in front of me that's showing me a picture of a crane picking up a rock doesn't mean that I can claim whether that crane is real or not. All I can really claim is that I see a screen of a crane picking up a rock. If that makes sense.
Yeah. That's interesting. Hey, Blaze, you want to say something before we are done, like in less than 1 minute?
If I may, just
Yes.
two quick things. Prod, Destroyer, I apologize for stealing the entire conversations for so long. And secondly, Clearwaters, greatly appreciate the conversation. Thank you for being open to hearing a different perspective. I enjoyed it, even though I do think Desired was true. We did talk past each other on occasion, but I enjoyed the conversation. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Blaze. I appreciate you. That was a great conversation. I think you did really, really good, very respectful. Also, Desire, thank you so much for really interesting questions. I think that this conversation will be of value if we can continue it. And of course, Destroyer, thank you so much also for participating. You're like watching TV or something on the background. I can hear the TV.
Yes. Thank you.
And someone has a bird. I could hear a bird on the background, but it didn't bother me, so it's
That's
fine.
not me.
Okay.
That was me.
All right, no problem, guys. Thank you so much, Blaze, Desired, and Destroyer. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and everybody on the live stream. Thank you so much. I know that some viewer was asking me to ask the callers a few questions, but when I'm engaged in the conversation directly, I have a difficult time multitasking. So I apologize for not asking your questions to the callers. So that's a little bit of a problem, like not multitasking. If I start looking at the chat, I lose concentration, and I don't think it's fair for the caller that is taking the time to call in. So thank you so much. This was the live stream about God exists versus God must exist. Thank you so much. Have a great night, and I'll see you again tomorrow night. Have a great day.
See you.